Being able to handle and use media technologies, programs, and software professionally was crucial in ensuring the suggestions made by my target audience were fulfilled. My camera, a Panasonic Lumix DMC GX8, which I had used in my opening sequence project, made a reappearance in this project, and unlike last time, where I was filming in the dark with little natural light, I was now filming in a well-lit area of forest, with plenty of cover supplied by the surrounding trees that blocked out the direct beams of light from the sun. The recommended purpose of my camera is taking still portraits of people, and this has enabled me to take really detailed and professional close-up shots of characters' faces. The most complicated and newest software I used was the music program Logic X Pro. Unlike GarageBand, which I had used for previous projects and is targeted for beginners in music production, Logic X is aimed at intermediates and is a far more complex program with a plethora of different tools and functions I could utilize in my music production. Because of these complexities, I had help from A2 music students that were well accustomed to the software. Although these students were present throughout the process, as director and producer, I was arbiter of all decisions made. With Logic X, I was able to incorporate pitch bends to create abrupt ends in the sound. I also had access to a diverse range of synth sounds. The eerie tone of these sounds created a distinct sense of atmosphere and was both intense and creepy. Through Logic X, it was also much easier to change the pitch and tonalities of pieces of music, with much more impactful consequences on the film as a whole. I also revisited Photoshop, which I used to produce my film poster. I had to get reacquainted with many of the shortcuts and features present, but quickly set about editing my image. Fortunately, I did not have to undertake a massive task when editing, with the main features of my film poster including the dark fades at the top and bottom, as well as using drop shadows on text to make it more visible to the audience. I produced my film poster using Microsoft PowerPoint as opposed to the recommended program InDesign. Not only was I adept in this software, but I could work cross-platform, which saved me a lot of time. Also, the software was compatible with grammar checking software like Grammarly. If I had used InDesign, these advantages would not have been available to me. My result, when compared to work produced on this professional software, was barely noticeable, and actually the shortcuts and simplicity I found on the PowerPoint program allowed me to produce my work much quicker than I had anticipated. Technologies from previous projects made reappearances, such as my filming tripod, the website wordpress.com, where I blogged my whole production, and other websites like Scribd and Celtx. Celtx was a platform I used to produce my film scripts. A coherent and well-produced script was crucial in giving a clear idea to my actors of their role in the film. In this project, I found myself using more dialogue than in previous productions, so it was important I made more of a concerted effort to make sure emotions were clearly conveyed alongside their appropriate dialogue. Scribd simply was a program I used to publish large documents onto my WordPress blog that kept my site looking well organized. However, the program I used most of all was Final Cut Pro. Final Cut was used for a majority of my post-production. Primarily used for shot-to-shot editing, use in my previous projects meant I was already familiar with the software. I did, however, utilize new features, which mostly were due to the demands of the film's narrative and genre. The flashbacks used in my narrative prompted me to experiment with new transitions like fade to color. Because my film took place over a long period of time, it resulted in me using far more cross-dissolves than I had in other projects. Whereas in my opening sequence project, Blackheath, because all events took place within a single evening, I did not need any editorial techniques to represent a passage of time, unlike in What Kind of Man. Due to the length of this film, in comparison to my previous projects, which were around 2 to 3 minutes in length, I was much more aware of the general pacing of shots and how this played into the overall timing of the film, as well as scene to scene. As to conform to the drama genre, and also convey the tension and suspense found in the thriller genre, the pacing of my film was generally slow. As a consequence, I had to ensure that I kept the length of shots suitable enough so that the audience did not get bored or lost interest. This I found a challenge, and is where I found the use of music really vital, as it added more excitement and suspense to the slower shots. Also during this project, I had to be much more conscious of dialogue in junction with music, which was a failing that I identified in my last project as well as my animatics. Also in the production of What Kind of Man, I was always conscious of continuity and the four principal techniques. In order to uphold these, I would need to ensure that I competently use my camera, for instance ensuring I always followed the 180-degree rule. But through editing, I was also able to uphold continuity. Points at which lighting was inconsistent from shot to shot were changed. This was done by readjusting the saturation and exposure of the shots in question. Also, scenes where the 180-degree rule was broken were either refilmed or flipped using the transform tool. In conclusion though, I was able to use Final Cut Pro very well and was overall very pleased with the finished project.